I was restless, trying to free my hand from my husband while simultaneously preventing him from taking it away. But he wouldn't listen to a single word of mine. He dragged me, forcibly and roughly, toward that wrestler. I was overcome with fear and terror. I did not want to go to that man at all. In my previous life I had endured far fewer hardships. Now, by going to that wrestler, I felt that my sufferings would only increase. What terrified me most was that my husband was not willing to understand my pain. I was astonished. Why was he so adamant that I undergo halala with that wrestler? I was already receiving jibes about my barrenness, and now having halala with that wrestler meant I would become completely barren. I had heard that any woman who underwent halala with that wrestler was doomed to permanent infertility. No one knew the exact reason, but every woman who came to him for halala had ended up barren, and these stories filled me with dread. And now, my husband had brought me to that wrestler so that I could undergo halala and then remarry him. The reason for our divorce had been my barrenness. I was utterly confused, but my husband insisted that he must marry me no matter what. Whether or not I bore children made no difference to him. At that time, he had no other man. Only this one wrestler was willing to perform the halala because it was his business. I was extremely anxious. I did not want to be barren. Yet, despite my countless pleas, my husband refused to listen and forcibly married me to that wrestler. I resigned myself, thinking there was no other way out. So, I had to spend one night with that wrestler for the halala. The very sight of him made me tremble. He was a tall, heavily built man. When he came near, I hid behind him. His massive, powerful frame filled me with such terror that the moment felt like the day of judgment, being with any man other than my husband, and especially such a man, who by the very nature of his being, extinguished any hope within me. The next day I was granted a divorce, and some time later my husband remarried me. And then the very outcome I had feared occurred. I became barren for good. Who knows how many women had suffered the same fate? Including me, all the women were forced into halala, and whenever no other man was available, this wrestler was called upon. As a result, the woman would become incapable of bearing children. Not only that, even the wrestler was perplexed and distraught. He could not understand why every woman who stayed with him ended up barren. He did not do anything like an ordinary man. He would simply spend one night with her and then grant a divorce the next day. I became intensely curious. Surely there must be some reason behind this. That wrestler must be doing something. A secret, a hidden truth, that he kept from all of us, pretending as though he did not know what was happening. I resolved that no other woman should have to endure the agony of infertility. I was determined to uncover the truth. I was convinced that he was doing something that led to this problem, but what exactly? That was what I needed to know. We lived in the same neighborhood, and I often encountered him face to face. I began trying to learn his secret, and one day, his secret was revealed to me, and it shattered my world. The truth that I learned was so horrifying that my very soul nearly perished. It felt as if the earth had given way beneath my feet. My entire body was drenched in sweat as I was overwhelmed by shock and grief. I had never imagined that I would hear something like this. I had assumed perhaps there was some disease that caused women to become barren. But the truth I discovered was as if the sky had collapsed upon me. I was in such a state of sorrow and anger. I had been so deeply betrayed, and I was not the only one. Countless other women, including myself, had suffered the same treachery. The truth was so ghastly that even if I wanted to, I could not bear it. I was completely paralyzed. Standing on my own 2 feet became nearly impossible. I staggered and eventually sat down on the ground, my senses completely shut off, my mind as blank as a slate. I could not fathom what I was to do after learning this dreadful truth. My head felt like it was about to burst from all the thoughts swirling inside me. When I could bear it no longer, I made a decision. I would take revenge for what had happened to me. Not only that, but I resolved that I would tell every woman who had undergone halala with that wrestler. The truth was their right as well. For, under the guise of halala, my husband had divorced me so suddenly that I could barely comprehend it. A deep uncertainty had taken hold of me. I silently harbored a hatred for my husband and, in tears, returned to my parental home. I had thought that I would live my life at my family's place, somehow coping with the injustice my husband had inflicted upon me. After that, I could no longer find the strength to live. But then, to my utter disbelief, my husband contacted me. He apologized, saying that he had made a mistake in a fit of anger, that otherwise he would have loved me beyond measure. I could not believe his words. What kind of love was it that could destroy such a strong bond in mere moments? I had once been his beloved wife. He had chosen me to be his bride, and after our wedding, he had cherished me, filling my life with joy through his dower. But after 2 years, when I still had not borne a child, my in-laws began to hurl insults at me, humiliating me at every opportunity. My mother-in-law would speak to my husband while sitting, saying, "I told you, don't be stubborn. This woman will only bring unrest into your life. Look at